How might somebody who had had the same experience 100 years ago have explained it? Would they have claimed to have seen an angel, a demon, or, as were quite numerous in Kerry folklore at the time, a spell cast by the fairies?
The fairies, I'll tell you what the fairies are. God moved from his seat, and when he turned around, Lucifer were in it. Then hell was made in a minute. God started to cast out all the angels. Oh, God Almighty stops his angel Gabriel, or heaven will be swept clean out. I will stop now, says God Almighty. Them that are in heaven, let them remain in heaven. Them that are in hell, let them remain in hell. And them that are between heaven and hell, let them remain in the air. And the angels that are between heaven and hell are the fairies.
The changeling is one of the oldest and most feared of beings in Irish folklore. They appeared when the fairy folk took a baby from its cot in the middle of the night, and eventually replaced the child with one of their own, an infant who would look and sound exactly the same, but was not human. The most famous alleged changeling story in recent history happened in the small town of Castle Gregory, when, beginning in December of 1927, and over the course of 3 months, 6 local infants disappeared without a trace from their cots in the dead of night. The Gardaí had no leads. The locals, however, had already determined the culprits, the fairy folk. 2 weeks after the last disappearance in February 1928, all of the missing toddlers suddenly reappeared in their cots overnight. Regardless of the legends and of what some of the more superstitious locals were saying, the parents were overjoyed. Except one. Siobhan Crean, the mother of young Niall Crean, smothered the toddler to death 3 days after he reappeared. At Tralee District Court, just before she was sentenced to life imprisonment, she calmly said,
"That thing was not my baby."
The other 5 children, though shunned by some of the older members of the Castle Gregory community, grew up to become healthy young men and women. As was the case with many young Kerry people at the time, they made their respective ways to America, Britain, and Australia. Though much effort was made to do so for the purposes of this documentary, none of the 5 Castle Gregory children could be tracked down. In fact, none of the countries they left for can even find proof of their citizenship in their records. Is it possible that someone or something did actually enter people's houses in the dead of night and kidnap their children? And if so, what exactly was the purpose of these nocturnal intruders? Could such events be happening today, in a different capacity? Owen, from Tralee, had a strange experience one night, which he believes could be linked to a severe illness which he developed soon after. We are using a false name, as he has requested not to be identified.
It was about 4 years ago, and at the time I was studying for my mock exams for my leaving cert. I was lying on my bed and I was drifting in and out of sleep. I woke up and there was this intense pain, and it felt like it was behind my 2 eyeballs and going right through my brain. I tried to move, but I was paralyzed. And looking down towards the end of my bedroom, near my door, as all of a sudden this light appeared, but it wasn't any normal light, it was bright white. Gradually it separated into 3. 2 of the lights came up on either side of my bed. The 3rd one approached near the base of my bed. The next morning I woke up and I made my way towards the door, and all of a sudden I knew I was very, very ill. A doctor came to the house. I described the pain to him and he recommended that I go to the hospital and have a brain scan. I was referred to a consultant who diagnosed me with a tumour behind my eyes.
Owen was flown to London, where he underwent emergency surgery. The procedure took 22 hours and the tumour was successfully removed. But the doctors were at a loss. The size and malignancy of the tumour should have had Owen bedridden and unconscious for months beforehand, and yet he had been studying for his exams with full control over his physical and mental faculties only 5 days before the operation. It was as if the tumour had just appeared overnight.
For a long time I wondered What did I see that night? Was I seeing that bright, white, intense light on account of a tumour in my head? Or did the tumour in my head come from a paranormal occurrence?
The world is very interesting, for there seems to be no limit to space. We thought in reading the Bible that God made the world and the sixth day he made the sun, moon and stars and placed them in the firmament. You think that's how they were behind him in a big basket, but that don't make sense today. The original theory of the earth is there was an explosion in the sun and we're about the same distance as Mars from the sun. So if the rest of the planet, if we are populated, maybe Mars is too. What do you think of that?
Could there possibly be a common link between all of these strange events? Is there something both physical and spiritual that is watching us, sometimes touching the lives of a select few for purposes unknown to us? Is there a connection between what historians call folklore, what religion calls angelic beings, what modern culture calls aliens, and what Carl Jung called the archetypes of a collective consciousness? Or is it, as Kerry's own son John B. Keane put it, manifestations of the gossamer lunacy that all Kerry people inherit?